it is time to shine a light on the VIX. We're going to take a in-depth dive on the VIX and what the VIX and relatedly the S&P are doing that is starting to show signs of normalcy returning back into the market. This has by far been the best day trading week we've had. And once I walk everyone through this, it'll make sense as to why price action is starting to follow through better, that the normalized volatility is not leading to those +1 and +2 standard deviation kind of sessions like we've had throughout most of April, and why managing risk is getting much more reasonable now. And that is because the VIX has finally found its way for more than one session back below 16. Now, why is this important? So shining a light on the VIX means we've got to take a look at what that comfort zone has been on the VIX. So I'm going to draw a line here on this chart at the upper end of the range. And the upper end of the range has largely been around 16. There's a Darvis level showing that to you there, and just below 16. So this area right here, right, that we started to break above in April, this is when the price action gets much, much more difficult, more violent chop. I don't mind chop, but violent chop means we're measuring it against historical volatility and we're pushing the first and second standard deviations. This is a very difficult environment. But what's happened this week, really the gift of this week, is we're finally getting back down below that 16 level. We're getting back down into that comfort level, that comfort zone. And staying below 16 is going to be really key for the remainder of April and going into May for more normal follow through, more normal, higher probability of follow through, and more normal volatility, which is such a big part of what's plagued us throughout April. So how does this equate to what's happening on the S&P, and why look at the S&P? Remember, VIX is a contract based on the SPX option. It's largely called the fear gauge. I like to consider it more of an uncertainty gauge. So if we're uncertain, there's not going to be a lot of follow through. If we're uncertain, it's not going to be clearly bullish or clearly bearish. So being above 16 is really kind of an uncertainty line. Back below 16 and above the anchored VWAP on the S&P has been really a big shift that we've seen this week. So price action in the drop, as we can see, into April 19, got us down the anchored VWAP. Now that VWAP, by the way, is anchored to January 2, the first trading day of this year. And getting below it is problematic as that VIX is still above 16. But what happened this week? VIX got down below 16 and the S&P got back above that anchored VWAP. Look at the kind of follow through we're getting more often than not above previous session closes. We're getting follow through to higher highs. And while we're not out of the woods yet, this is a very good first sign for more normal action. So remember that comfort level on the VIX below 16 plus the S&P above that anchored VWAP does point to better follow through really broadly. Because remember, if we were to sort of think about the overlap between the NASDAQ and the Dow, it's really the S&P. The S&P is the best way to look at what's happening in tech and then what's happening in the Dow. And then the common denominator, or the best way to look at both of those, would be to look at the S&P, because it's a little bit like the NASDAQ with tech, but it's a little bit like the Dow with financials, healthcare, energy. So this metric here, anchored VWAP, below 16, those two are actually spelling for a decent end to the month, and I'm being very optimistic going into May. All right, gang, that's a wrap. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks as always for smashing that like button. I'll see y'all in the next update. Hey traders, Raghee from Simpler Trading. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like and a comment below. And remember, subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll get notified of the next update. And when you're ready to join me for live trading, be sure to head on over to simplertrading.com. I'll see you in the next update.